Hey guys, hey, this is Anne Marie of the Anti-HR Consultancy. And in today's video, I want to talk about the curious case of the man who was left on the mountain by his coworkers and lessons that you can take from it as employees. So I don't know if you guys have heard, but recently an unidentified man was left overnight on a mountain by his coworkers and colleagues after a company retreat. But first, this is the Anti-HR channel, and on this channel, I like to talk about HR issues from an employee perspective. I try to provide HR advice and tips that will help employees better understand their workplace rights and help them position themselves to navigate their workplace and to understand and assert their workplace rights if they believe those rights are being violated. So if that's of interest to you, please hit that like button, please hit the subscribe button, please comment constructively, and share this video with a friend. So let's talk a little bit about this gentleman who found himself overnight on a mountainside. And I am going to link this story, the BBC version of this story, to the description of this video, because I just recently talked to you guys about Denise Prudhomme and that very sad story, the Wells Fargo employee. And then I became aware of this story, right? That also happened in August. So I'm like, what in the world is going on in these work environments? But I think that this story is also an object lesson. And to me, the takeaway is, one of the things I often tell people is that you need to make your friends away from work and to never think that the people who you work with are going to be your closest friends. It can happen, but generally speaking, try to separate your personal relationships from work. At least that's my advice. So let's talk a little bit about this gentleman who got left on the mountain. So based on the story, and I'm just going to summarize it because, as I said, I am going to provide you with a link to the story so that you can read it for yourself. And of course, these are my opinions and my takes, and yours don't have to match with mine, but these are my takes and my thoughts about the story based on what I read. So the gentleman has not been identified, right? But according to the BBC report, he was found, he was found and rescued from a mountain. And this happened in the state of Colorado. And he was left behind the previous day by his colleagues during an office retreat. Now, of course, the first question for me is, why in the world would a company have a retreat on a mountain? Why they would do that? To me, that's the first sign of bad judgment and bad decision making. Like, why in the world would you have employees climbing a mountain? To me, that's risk. That's taking on unnecessary liability. Like, why would you even position your company to make people climb a mountain to have a retreat? Like, whatever happened to renting space in a hotel or renting space, in a nice, restaurant or something, or to have a retreat? Why in the world you would make people climb a mountain in order to have a retreat? I do not understand. But apparently that is what this company did. So apparently, this guy, along with his colleagues, climbed this mountain. And for that, what I understand, at some point, he got tired or needed to take a break. And I don't know if this was supposed to be a bonding exercise, what it was supposed to be, but he got tired, decided to take a break, and the other people left and went without him. And apparently descended back down the side of the mountain without him and left him up there, right? He makes it up to the mountain, right? And then starts going down the mountain and realizes that the markers and things that he left to tell him which way to go had been removed, apparently by his colleagues. And so he realizes that he's lost. He has a cell phone. He calls his colleagues. They tell him that he went the wrong way and that he should go back up the mountain and then make his way back in a different way down to catch up with the group. At some point, while he is trying to make his way down the hill, a storm comes in. And he gets stuck up there in a wind and rainstorm. He said he fell as he was trying to come down several times and then found that he was unable to walk. By now it's dark. About 4 o'clock, they said. He started his descent somewhere around in the afternoon. By 4 o'clock, this storm comes in. He's still on the mountain The colleagues have all left him there. Okay. Because of the storm, he loses signal. So he can't call or contact anyone on his cell phone. And so he's on this mountainside. He falls. He said he fell several times, so then couldn't walk. He ended up in a gully somewhere. And lucky for him, the next day, while they sent out search and rescue the next day because they couldn't look for him properly while the storm was going on. So they either started search and rescue later that evening, but by the next morning they were looking for him. Emergency people had been out looking for him, and he was able to get a signal on his phone and call, and they were able to find him and rescue him. And they all said that he was lucky to have been found and lucky to be alive. Okay. Now I have questions. I've got questions. My first question is, why in the hell do you have a retreat on a mountain? Whose bad idea was this? Who needs to lose their job for coming up with that dumb idea about having a retreat on a mountain? That's my first concern. Secondly, what the hell kind of colleagues did this man have? What kind of people move things, markers that have been left for someone to find their way down a hill? If they didn't put them there, why would they move them? That's my next question. And what the hell kind of colleagues did this man have? Colleagues, it sounds to me, that didn't like him very much. Now, we don't have a lot of detail, but that's what I'm surmising, because it would seem to me that if these were work colleagues that liked you, they would have waited for you. Someone would have sat on the phone and gave you instructions and waited for you to come down. They all left that man up there and went on down, left him up there. Left him up there. And but for the grace of a higher power, that man wouldn't even made it down there alive. He said he fell like 20 times, according to the article. And I have the article open while I'm talking to you because, you can't make this stuff up. I was reading it and I still couldn't believe it. They said he left the summit on his own at 11:30 in the morning, and they didn't find that man until the next day. He said he got disoriented while he was coming down the hill, which can happen when you are in high altitudes. I know this because I live somewhere that has high altitudes, right? And sometimes you can get lightheaded, you can get short of breath just being in that kind of environment. I couldn't imagine having to go up a hill, up a mountain for a retreat. I would be one of the people that would have called in sick and not shown up, because I'm not climbing no mountain for nobody. I don't even climb mountains when I travel. That's just hiking to me is not fun. So the idea of being told that I have to go on a hike to participate in a retreat would have been a no-go for me. I'm not that much of a team player, never have been, and was never someone who would subject myself to doing something I didn't like. I'd be the first person to get sick that day and not be able to make it. I'm so sorry. I really wanted to be there, but I had the flu, the one-day flu. But let's get back to these colleagues that left that man up there and came on down, and nobody even tried to come back and help him find his way down that hill. What the hell kind of colleagues are this? Someone in the article said they thought that this was going to make for very awkward interactions when he got back to the office. You think? You think? Like, I don't know, they don't give a lot of detail about how all of this happened beyond saying what I've shared, but I have so many questions about why someone would be asked to venture along a trail of a mountain which is 14,000 feet high. I have questions about why they weren't all required to go up together and come down together. I have questions about why nobody turned around and came back to go get him when he got turned around. I have so many questions, but what I surmise from the story is, at a minimum, I don't think this man was very well loved. I don't think he was climbing a mountain with people that liked him. I don't know, maybe he's not a very good coworker. Maybe he's a jerk. I don't know. But I just was like, when they said that he had put markers down and also got turned around because people had removed the markers, that got my attention. I think there's way more to this story than what the report is providing. But the takeaway for me is, just because you work with people don't mean that they're your friends. And people are always surprised when colleagues do things that undermine them. Colleagues behave in ways that are very problematic. And people a lot of times don't see it coming because for some reason they think because you're colleagues means that you're friends. And that's not what it means. It just means these people work in the same place you do. Doesn't mean that they're your friends. Doesn't mean that they're going to look out for you. And this man could have lost his life because of these people. Maybe it's not completely their fault, but I am appalled at the idea that he was left on his own to come down by that mountain by himself. If you tell people that they got to climb a mountain for a retreat, the company has a responsibility to make sure everybody gets up the mountain safely and gets down the mountain. As a person who does, travel and group trips as part of my life and business, you take people on an excursion. It's your responsibility to make sure everybody gets there as much as possible. Can't control everything, but make sure you hire reputable people. Everybody goes together. Everybody comes back together. You lay out parameters for people to be back at meeting points and different things to make sure that everybody comes together and everybody leaves together, right? And so, especially if you're taking people up on a hike, up a mountain, or up to a waterfall, or up to something like that, you expect people to come. And if someone's tired and needs to take a breath or something, you wait for them. You don't leave them there and then hope they catch up with everybody else. And when they don't, tell them, well, you just got to come back down. And then when they say they're lost, you tell them, oh, well, you got to go back up the hill and come down on your own. I just found when I was reading that, I was like, what the hell kind of retreat is this? And what kind of colleagues did he have? So again, the moral for me is just because you work with people doesn't mean that they care anything about you or that they have any obligation to care anything about you. And you have to proceed accordingly with people, with that understanding, right? That if you're going up a mountain, you better make it your business to make sure that you don't end up in a situation where you're stuck because these fools didn't even wait for you when you had to stop and take a break. And you're asking people to go up a high elevation like that, they might get short of breath. They might get lightheaded. They might need to take a minute to catch their breath. You're supposed to wait for people. You don't just leave them there. So I think there's more to the story, but based on the report, I definitely think he should get a lawyer. I definitely think he should look into getting some accountability. This man could have died. At the writing of the story, he was still hospitalized. So that's my takeaway. I'd love to hear what you all's takeaway is in the comments. Please read the story before you comment. But it will be linked in the description of the video. But if you've read the story, if you've seen reports about it, I would love to hear what you think. But my takeaway is it does sound to me like he was surrounded by very supportive and caring colleagues. And I also think that the decision to have a retreat where people are required to climb a mountain was not well thought through. And they may have to have some accountability around that. It was a very bad idea. Whoever came up with that idea, there needs to be a questioning of that person, but wouldn't be surprised if it was the CEO or one of these higher up management people who don't have no damn sense and just come up with these ideas. And then, of course, people in HR fail or are afraid to tell them that's a really bad idea. We shouldn't do that for all these reasons. I personally, as a person who'd been in HR and often had to shoot down bad ideas from management, would have been a person who would have been like, that's a bad idea. Here are all the liability exposures you will have for taking some people up a side of a mountain. I don't think we should do this. Can we please just rent a conference room in a hotel like normal people and have the retreat there if we must retreat? I think retreats are some of the biggest wastes of employee time. Nothing ever gets accomplished because of retreats. People come sitting there, brainstorm, come up with extra work for people to do. And rarely ever does anything that happened in a retreat ever get implemented. And if it is implemented, it's usually not implemented well. Massive waste of time. Doesn't cause any cohesion, doesn't cause collaboration. People often come out there disliking each other even more than when they went in to the retreat. Total waste of time. But I digress. If you're going to have a retreat, which employers have a right to have, why in the world would you have it in a mountain? On a mountainside? It don't make no sense. Why would you even go near a mountain, much less make people climb a mountain to participate in a retreat? But anyway, I'm glad this guy made it out of this alive. He definitely could have died. He ended up being overnight on a mountainside in a gully, hoping that someone would find him and save him. And luckily for him, once the storm passed, he was able to get a signal back and had the presence of mind to call 911. And that's how they were able to find him. They actually said in the report that if he had not called, they may not have found him because the area where he was not a place they were going to be searching was not going to be a part of their initial search for him. So he could have very well died. And I'm glad that he didn't, but I do hope that people get a lesson out of this. I think there's often, HR takeaways in a lot of these things. For employers, have your retreat in a damn hotel. That's a takeaway for y'all. Stop trying to be so interesting and so creative that you have a retreat on a mountaintop. That's just, to me, asininely stupid. I mean, if we could put those two words together, just beyond stupid, in my opinion. And then the other thing is, all your colleagues ain't your friends. People that would not wait for you to catch your breath and leave you and then tell you to get down on your own are not people that like you or care anything about your well-being. So you got to make sure that you're looking out for yourself at work and not relying on people who are your coworkers to look out for you, and also realize that your colleagues, just because you have coworkers and colleagues, that doesn't make them your friends. And so make sure that you are looking out for yourself at work. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you found the takeaways helpful. As always, HR is not your enemy, but they're definitely not your friend, but I am. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.